week when both sides of the aisle and both sides of the Capitol came together to pass a targeted, responsible, and necessary relief package, which became law with overwhelming bipartisan support. It passed here in the Senate 92-6. Members on both sides of the aisle, myself included, have demonstrated that we are willing to dedicate resources to those struggling during this pandemic. The problem with what is being put forward, the House passed Cash Act, is that it is not targeted to help those who are most in need. Now, just as a sort of point that out, it's not just us saying that, Mr. President. Even the Washington Post editorial board, editorial board called it one last bad idea for 2020. They singled it out as especially wrong-headed, the efforts of the progressive left to depict this, and I quote, as aid to desperate Americans despite the huge amounts of their term, this is the Washington Post term, their term, destined for perfectly comfortable families, end quote. As others here on the floor have noted, the bill would provide a payment.
So basically what they're saying is that the money is not going to go to the poor, but for people that are completely stable. Well, I'm sorry, but honestly, these people do need the money. And we're forgetting the fact of why this money was being sent out to people. So even in the name of it, it's called a stimulus. And what do we use stimulus, or why do we stimulate things? Is to create action. And so if we're going to be so hung up on what the hell they're going to use their money for, I mean, it's kind of stupid and retarded. And it just means that they just don't want to give this money, and they would just want to find any fucking excuse to make things bad for people. So let's keep listening to this, Mr. John Thune.
Family of five making up to $350,000. A family of five making $250,000 would receive a $5,000 benefit. Now, just to put that in perspective, Mr. President, that's more than was paid to a middle-class family of five under the CARES Act that we passed back in March. In addition, the bill would add an additional $463 billion, nearly $500 billion to the annual debt. And again, it's all money we have to borrow. All of this is money we have to borrow.
So now we're very concerned as far as the money that we need to borrow in order to pay for this. But unfortunately, I mean, a lot of money was being given to big corporations, like, for example, Amazon. What was it? The LA Lakers and all that. In view of that, they really didn't need the money, but they had connections with the bank, and so they were able to get this money extremely easily compared to small businesses that really didn't have the capacity to do that. So I could tell you, these people that you're talking about that are going to get an extra $1,400, and I do see a problem with this, because just like when you're in a business and you give a certain amount, like, say, for example, your house is worth $500,000, and the agent knows for sure that the house is not worth $500,000, but all they want is to be able to sign you up and get the listing. So they lie to you. The seller's head, they heard $500,000. So it doesn't matter what you do in the future, they're still, their head, they're already counting with that money. And the way that it was set up now, people heard $2,000 per person, not $2,000 and the children to be $600. No, they heard $2,000. So let's say an average family of five, you would have $2,000 for mom, $2,000 for dad, and then $2,000 for each kid. So we're talking about $10,000. And now you're shortchanging them for $600 per person. And they're not going to forget about this. So it's going to make things a lot harder for Republicans, especially because the president, he just wiped his hands and said, look, I'm pushing for $2,000 per person. and now they're changing things up. They want to add things that weren't even a problem before. And even in the bill, if you really read the bill, it doesn't specify anything about the 230. But I digress. Let's continue with this guy.
And that's just the more than the first two economic impact payments combined. So put that in perspective, Mr. President. If you think of other ways that you could use that amount of money, the truth is that those types of sums could potentially be spent in many more targeted ways. But our colleagues on the Democrat side don't even want to debate some of those alternatives. Allowing small businesses a second draw of the Paycheck Protection Program would have cost approximately $285 billion. For the cost of the Cash Act, we could do another round of assistance to help small businesses keep their employees on the payroll and still have almost $200 billion left over.
Okay, so this John Thune, he's talking about the payment protection, or the PPP. That money that goes to small businesses, yes, will eventually go to the outside market. But if you really think about it, if that's to pay the employees if they're employed. But if you're like a small business and you're not making what you were making before, doesn't matter how much money you inject to that. If you don't have clients, you don't have a business. And so what they're going to eventually do is they're going to either find ways of cutting hours for the employees. So they're not going to get stimulus, the $2,000, and then they're going to get reduction of hours. How is that going to help the American people? I mean, this money, this potential $2,000, what it's doing is injecting. It's creating excitement. It's like if you were thinking of getting that brand new TV or that new refrigerator that's going on you, you're not going to hold back, because this is an added. It's going to inject money directly to the economy, which is basically what we want. And then those people that are going to be evicted soon, what are they going to do? They're going to be able to give that money to their landlord to keep their home. And these guys are talking about selective amount of people that yeah, maybe they will benefit, but it doesn't really matter, because you're helping out a mass amount of people, not just this selective few. Let's continue.
The expanded unemployment benefit signed into law last week cost approximately $120 billion for 11 additional weeks. That means that we could provide more than additional 40 weeks, 10 months of enhanced unemployment insurance benefits for those who have lost their jobs for the same cost as this proposal. Mr. President, this is simply not targeted relief.
Okay. $600 per person, but we're actually talking about $1,400. So he's talking about that you could increase the unemployment benefits for an additional 10 weeks. But isn't unemployment really when you're just unemployed, not just added revenue for you? How does this stimulate anything? I mean, it's like infusing, let's say you're bleeding out, and they give you a little flask like that of blood. That's not going to save your life. Right now, we're talking about the American people and how they're actually they're bleeding out. And the bailout money that they're talking about, we're just bailing out big corporations, things like that, but we are not helping the American people. And I think that's what they're failing to do. And the American people are the ones that are going to vote them in or vote them out, not corporations. Corporations may help in funding for their campaigns and all that, but eventually the people that make the decisions are the voters. Unless things change in what they're trying to do within a few days, but we'll see.
People who need it the most. And those who say that we should just vote on this flawed House bill conveniently leave out the fact that they do not want us to amend it to make it better, to deliver more assistance to the people who are hurt.
How the hell are you amending it to do better if what you're adding to it is that stipulation about voter fraud, which they've actually debunked many times over? And then also, how is it making it better by repealing that 230 protection for the social media? How is that better? People don't care. They were caring about the $2,000 that it was promised by our president, by Congress, that the House of Congress, that they already passed it. How is it being better? And that's the annoying part, is that they are trying to tell you what's good for you, yet you do know what's good for you, which is an extra $2,000.
The most.
It's just funny.
So, Mr. President, for all those reasons, and again, maybe just point out one last time that has been less than a week really now since the Senate voted and the president signed into law a proposal negotiated literally over months. Every fine point of that proposal negotiated, signed into law to provide targeted,
The CARES Act
fiscally
2.0
responsible
was
assistance to the people
available
in this country who need it the most.
March,
This proposal,
May.
this proposal is a shotgun approach where a rifle makes a lot more sense. If you really want to help people who need this the most, in a time when we are running a $26 trillion debt,
What a
borrowing
joke.
every penny that we're making available to do this, we ought to sit down and figure out how to do it in the most efficient, effective, targeted way possible. This absolutely does not do that. When you have a family that is making $350,000 a year in this country,
That means you?
getting up to thousands of dollars of payments, and $250,000 a year in this country getting, under this proposal, a $5,000 check. I would argue, Mr. President, that is not targeted. That is not
you
fiscally
screw over
responsible.
the masses
That is not
because
efficient. That is
some
not
are
an
going to get
effective
extra money.
way
That's pretty
to
sad.
spend the American
So
taxpayers' dollars.
if my neighbor's house is burning because he smokes in bed, and I've told him many times not to smoke in bed, but he still decided to, and now the house is on fire, should the fire department not show up because, well, he was warned before? What the hell was he thinking? And now we have this fire. No. What we do is we still send the fire department. We send them over to shut this off, to put out the fire, and to also to protect the neighborhood. Because if they let it go, the rest of the neighborhood is going to go, and it's just frustrating, honestly.
Let's help the people who need it the most. We just passed a proposal, signed into law, that does that. And I think many of us on this side of the aisle are willing to look at other ideas and things that we can do that would help those people more. But this certainly is not it, so I object.
Mr. President,
Okay.
Objection is noted.
just very briefly,
The Democratic leader.
someday soon.
That was classic. Let me see. Oh man.
Mr. President, the only thing I
Someday
would
soon,
say
he
through-
says.
A
Let's see.
majority.
Ideas and things that we can do that would help those people more. But this certainly is not it, so I object.
Mr. President,
Objection is noted.
just very briefly,
That's
Majority,
awesome.
the Democratic leader.
someday soon.
Awesome.
Mr. President, the only thing I would say through the chair to my friend from South Dakota
Do
is
they know
many of the
something we don't know?
proposals he proposed as alternatives to our proposal, the Republican majority objected to when we had our negotiations on the
Right.
CARES bill. We believe this can be in addition to the expansion of unemployment insurance and other things. Given the state of the economy,
so he wants to add
that
it
is
on.
what's needed. And I thank you for that and yield the floor.
Mr. President,
Senator from Vermont.
thank you. And let me say to my friend Senator Thune, it's certainly, I concur with you, what a pleasure it is to be spending New Year's Day with you and our colleagues.
Right.
Exactly what I know and every other member here wanted to do. But here we
course.
are because we have to be here. And we are here because back home in my state and all over this country, millions and millions of families are struggling to put food on the table. They are struggling to pay their rent. They are struggling to come up with the money they need to go to the doctor. And this hits me in a sense, in a personal way. I just received the other day from a colleague of mine in Burlington, Vermont, where I live. Burlington, Vermont, largest city in state of Vermont, all of 40,000 people. And what a volunteer wrote to me, they said, this is the quote, reporting on a food drive in Burlington, Vermont, where I live. Quote, over 30 volunteers showed up for the Champlain School to help bag groceries and to hand them out to those who came out.
You know they're in trouble because he has an
Unfortunately,
easel in
there
the
was not
back.
nearly enough
So
donated
it's
food
gonna
to
get
provide
good.
a bag to everyone who showed up, despite us planning on an increased need. The line of cars filled the parking lot, wrapped around the school, and went out onto the main road for half a mile. This represented a major uptick from the October event that we were involved in. This is Burlington, Vermont. Hundreds of cars lining up for emergency food, and the volunteers did not have enough food to distribute. They had to say to families who are trying to feed their kids, sorry, we do not have enough food. So what we are doing today is very simple. And that is Senator Thune and Senator McConnell and others have raised objection
Of
to the House-passed bill.
course.
And in the United States Senate, when we have differences of opinion, what we should be doing is debating that bill. So all that Senator Schumer is asking, all that I am asking is a simple request. Bring the bill to the floor. Not even asking you to vote for it.
Right.
Bring the bill to the floor. And on top of everything else, we need 60 votes.
So basically what he's saying is let the senators make the choice if they want to continue and pass the standalone bill, or do they want to have Mitch McConnell just block this, which is ridiculous. I mean, he's getting a lot of heat for this, but who knows how this is going to end up.
Yes. 60 votes. Can we get 60 votes? I don't know. I think virtually all of the 48 Democrats will vote for it. It
I'm
means,
trying to
Senator
think
Thune,
of-
that we need 12 Republicans. I
We're
gather
gonna
we got
have to
one
put
right
some
here
rules here for you
who
guys.
indicated he would vote for it. 5 or 6 others have been public about saying they will vote for it. Will we get the rest? I don't know. You don't know. But what is the problem with giving members of the United States Senate the opportunity to vote on the legislation? And when we have that debate, you can come up and you can raise all of your objections and we can debate it. Now, I hear Senator Thune and Senator McConnell before him talk about this bill being socialism for the rich, which I got to tell you, I find, Mr. President, somewhat hysterical, because that's an issue I have been talking about for many, many years.
Right.
And I am very delighted that my conservative Republican friends now recognize that we do have socialism for the rich. To paraphrase Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who said that we live in a society where we have socialism for the rich and rugged individualism for the poor. King was right.
Rugged
But despite what my Republican colleagues are saying, truth is that according to the Tax Policy Center, the top 5% of Americans, the wealthiest people in our country, would receive less than 1% of the benefits of these direct payments. Less than 1%. Doesn't sound to me like too much socialism for the rich.
Right.
But while we are on the subject of socialism for the rich, which my Republican friends have suddenly become very concerned about, let me talk about the Trump tax proposal that was pushed very hard by Senator McConnell and the Republican leadership, and where I think every Republican voted for it. You want to talk about socialism for the rich? It is not the bill that puts $2,000 into working class hands all over this country. That ain't socialism for the rich. This is socialism for the rich in that bill.
Right.
Amazon. Oh, by the way, I must say this if I may. We were quoting the liberal Washington Post, owned by Jeff Bezos, the wealthiest guy in the world.
That's true.
So here is Jeff Bezos's company,
he's quoting.
Amazon, and they received a tax rebate. They paid nothing in 2018 in federal taxes.
Mm-hmm.
That's a corrupt tax system to begin with. But then on top of that, they received $129 million as a tax rebate. That, Senator Thune, is what socialism for the rich. In fact, this particular company is owned by the richest guy in the world. You gave him a $129 million rebate.
Well, he needs
But it's not just Amazon.
Delta.
Delta Airlines also paid nothing in federal taxes in
Because they're
2018.
going bankrupt by
And yet
every
they
day.
received a $187 million rebate from that
Just
particular bill. Chevron, helping to destroy our planet with their carbon emissions, $181 million in a rebate. That, my friends, is what socialism for the rich is about.
Right.
Socialism for the rich is not, in the midst of this terrible pandemic, putting a $2,000 check into the hands of working families.
Mm-hmm.
President, truth of the matter is that as a result of this pandemic, we are living through the worst and most difficult economic period since the Great Depression. Eviction all over this country, in the wealthiest nation on earth. Moms struggling to feed their kids, keep the electricity on, and be able to go to the doctor. Now, I hear from our Republican friends that the economy is doing better,
Right.
but I would like to just read to them a few of the stories that I have received in my office. We ask people,
Oh, that's pretty sad, right?
simple question, how are you doing out there? What's going on in your lives? And we receive many, many thousands of responses from people in every state in this country. Just a few, just to bring some dose of reality here to the United States Senate, which often,
Right.
in the midst of all of the campaign contributions coming in here from the rich, does not know what's going on in the real world. Here's the real world. Gentleman in Texas wrote, $2,000 is the difference between keeping our apartment and being evicted.
Exactly.
Mother in Virginia wrote, $2,000 means I can afford to feed my 3 kids.
Wow.
Now, maybe we should give her a long lecture on macroeconomics
Right.
and how well the stock market is doing.
Mm-hmm.
All she's worried about is feeding her 3 children. Woman in Wisconsin wrote, $2,000 would mean not having to choose between rent and groceries and not having to ration my partner's meds.
Interesting.
Woman in Nevada wrote, it means paying my rent and getting life-saving treatment because I can't afford the $50 copay through my work insurance just to see my neurologist right now. Father in Florida wrote, quote, it would mean I could pay my bills. My electricity and phone are about to get shut off. I didn't have money for my son on Christmas, and I won't have money for his birthday
Yeah.
on January 2nd. Father in New Jersey wrote, it would mean I could pay off credit card debt accumulated during this pandemic, feed my children, and pay my bills. Parent in Massachusetts wrote, it would mean that I could pay my rent and electricity and put food on the table. Woman in Missouri wrote, it would mean getting out of crushing debt. It would mean survival without daily fear. Someone in
Because
Texas wrote, it would
Because
mean
it's okay for people to go into debt, get stuff on credit, put it on the credit card to pay bills and stuff like that at 20-30% interest, because and then go ahead and give a discount to all these small businesses and big corporations with the PPP. It's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous.
I could actually put food in the fridge. Man in Maryland wrote, quote, "It would mean I don't have to beg or go without food, shelter, and medicine. It would mean my family stays warm another couple of months and my dad gets proper treatment."
Senator, yield for a question.
I would.
Let's see the question.
I'd like to ask a question of the
don't cough.
senator from Vermont through the chair. I have listened to the Republican analysis of the bill which you and Senator Schumer and I are asking for a vote on. A bill which passed the House and would give $2,000 basically in allotments or payments to families across America with certain income restrictions. And I've heard from the other side of the aisle repeatedly that this is socialism for the rich, that this is fundamentally unfair, and that we should do things in a targeted way. That's the argument that's made over and over again. And reference has been made repeatedly to the COVID-19 bill that passed last week with 92 votes, including many of the Republicans, virtually all of them, not all of them, but virtually all of them. And so that bill, if I remember correctly, had a $600 payment included in the bill. Right. And I asked my staff, would you please analyze the formula for distributing the $600 and compare it to the formula for the $2,000, which is part of our bill? And lo and behold, they discovered it's the same formula. So if there is some fundamental moral injustice in the distribution of these funds, then I'm afraid all but 6 of the Republicans are guilty of the same immorality, because they all voted for that formula last week when it was $600, and now are scandalized by the notion that the same formula they voted for would be used for a $2,000 payment. I'm sure I've missed something in the translation here. I'd like to ask the senator from Vermont to explain this faux outrage from the Republican side of the aisle.
Well, I think my friend from Illinois missed nothing in the translation. He's exactly right. But I also...
Senator from Illinois makes a good point. Senator, yield for a question.
Yeah.
So if the same formula is used and you're increasing the amount by $1,400 per person, so you're going from basically for a family of 4, what would be $2,400 payment to $8,000 payment, and you phase that down using the same formula, does the senator from Illinois understand the math and why that skews toward people who make a lot more money than they would under the other formula?
If the question's directed toward me, I'll answer it.
Well, I just think that you're making a point and a statement which is not accurate, because you're saying the formula is the same. The formula is the same, but the inputs change. And so the way it ramps down means that somebody who makes $350,000 gets a payment under the Sanders-Hawley proposal that they wouldn't know, and it phases out a lot sooner, as you know. So let's be clear about how that formula works, because you are misrepresenting the way that formula works.
And I asked my friend
From Vermont has the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I would ask my friend from South Dakota, do you disagree with the Tax Policy Center, which says that the top 5% of Americans, the wealthiest people in our country, would receive less than 1% of the total benefits being dispersed?
I have not seen the Tax Policy Center, but I know math, and I know as a basic principle that when you stick bigger numbers in there, and you're using the same formula to phase something out, you're going to make it available to people who make a lot more money. That is a mathematical fact. And what you are saying when you talk about the same formula, it skews entirely different in the income scale. You know that. And all I'm saying is don't misrepresent the facts.
What I am saying is that according to a very reputable tax center organization, people who do this for a living, less than 1% of the benefits of the entire program go to the wealthiest people in this country. So when you're talking
1%.
about trying to say, oh my God, all of this money is going to the rich, that ain't really true. But I would also ask my friend, where did you suddenly become a religious adherent about concern of socialism for the rich when you gave 83% of the benefits to the rich and large corporations in the tax bill that you supported?
And the other one.
Where was your concern about socialism for the rich when Amazon, owned by the richest guy in the world, got $129 million tax rebate?
break.
I didn't hear much about socialism for the rich during that debate. Yeah.
Very simply, what you are suggesting, so what you're saying here is the owner of the Washington Post who said this is really bad policy and shouldn't be done in this way at the end of this year. Is that what you're saying, that because he is a wealthy person that somehow that's why he's making that statement? I think the Washington Post editorial board in most cases would be very sympathetic to the senator from Vermont's argument, because they take a liberal point of view on almost every issue. My point very simply is that we have limited amount of resources. This is borrowed money, as the senator from Vermont knows. And when we spent months, literally months, and you asked, why can't you guys just come down here? Why can't you just come down here and debate this? We tried 4 months to get the Democrats down here to debate a bill. We've put a bill on the floor in September. We put a bill on the floor in October, a coronavirus relief bill.
March.
And you guys blocked it. You didn't even want to talk about it. You didn't want to have an opportunity to amend it. We've been working at this 4 months, and we finally arrived after months at a proposal that helps people who need it the most, including nutrition assistants who.
That's a little bit disingenuous, because initially they had said no for the HEALS Act. Was it the HEALS Act? No. It was the CARES Act 2.0, then the HEALS, because it had the liability protection, and it had just a little bit of money for stimulus and stuff like that. And then they came up with the skinny bill, which had liability protection, which, of course, I mean, it was during that time frame of the elections and stuff like that. They don't want to hear anything about that. And honestly, I mean, if you are wanting to fix something at the beginning and they keep saying no, 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 and then all of a sudden, oh yeah, you want to figure something out, well, they're kind of pissed already. They really don't want to work with them. And now they're saying, oh, well, we tried for months and months and months, and there's nothing. That's just wrong.
Including rental assistance and including checks to people, $2,400 per family,
Reclaiming my time.
and including unemployment. Nutrition, want to have an opportunity to amend it. We've been working at this 4 months, and we finally arrived after months at a proposal that helps people who need it the most, including nutrition assistants, including rental assistance, and including checks to people, $2,400 per family,
Reclaiming my time.
and including unemployment.
All that I'm saying,
Wow.
this is a great debate. John, we should have this debate. And in 2 minutes, John, I'm going to give you the opportunity to say you support what we're doing, and then we will have this debate. That's your opportunity. But I want to get back. The senator from South Dakota did not answer the question that there was not apparently huge concern about socialism for the rich in the bill that they supported, or worried about the debt that would incur. So I see, if I may say so, a bit of hypocrisy here.
A bit.
Senator Thune and the Republican leadership wants to debate this issue. So do I. I think it's a great debate. Great debate. Now, as everybody knows, Senator McConnell proposed an idea. I don't agree with it, but it's an idea that's worthy of debate and discussion. And he said, let's combine 3 elements together. Let's incorporate the bill passed in the House by 2/3 of the House,
Right.
including 44 Republicans. Let's add to that the repeal of Section 230 of the Telecommunications Act. And let's also add to that, at President Trump's request, an issue about voter integrity, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
Okay? That is what Senator McConnell proposed. And in one moment, I am going to bring See, I know Republicans think I don't do much for them, and I'm not concerned about them. But Senator Thune, I'm going to bring your bill to the floor. Show you what a nice guy I am. New year, I'm going to bring Mr. McConnell, Senator McConnell's bill right to the floor and give you an opportunity to vote for it. All that I am asking while I bring Senator McConnell's Republican bill to the floor, we are going to bring the bill that passed the House with 44 Republicans to the floor as well. We'll have 2 votes. 1 vote on Senator McConnell's bill, needs 60 votes to pass. 1 bill on the House. 1 vote on the House bill, 60 votes to pass. That's it.
Mitch
So
is
it's
going
hard
to
for me to
reject it
imagine
right
how
away.
Senator Thune will object to us bringing forward the Republican bill. Here it goes. This is the legalese that I need to say, and I'm going to bring it forth, and I'm sure that Senator Thune will support me in my effort. I ask unanimous consent that if cloture is invoked on the veto message on H.R. 6395, National Defense Authorization Act, that notwithstanding Rule 22, at 3 p.m. today, short period of time, 3 p.m. today, Friday, January 1st, the Senate proceed to the consideration of calendar number 645, H.R. 9051, to provide a $2,000 direct payment to the working class. That the bill be considered read a 3rd time and the Senate vote on passage of the bill. And that if passed, the motion to reconsider be considered, made, and laid upon the table. Further, that following the vote on H.R. 9051, the Senate proceed to consideration of calendar number 644, S5085, that the bill be considered read a 3rd time, that there be 1 hour of debate on the bill, equally divided and controlled by myself or my designee and Senator McConnell or his designee. That following the use or yielding back of that time, the Senate vote on passage of the bill, and that if passed, the motion to reconsider be considered, made, and laid upon the table, all without intervening action or debate.
Is there objection?
Mr. President,
I object.
The senator from Missouri.
Mr. President, reserving the
Let's
right
see.
to object, I want to say that I can't for the life of me figure out why it is so difficult to get a vote on the bills that Senator Sanders has just referenced when, by my count, the President of the United States, the Speaker of the House, a large majority of the House of Representatives, and I think a super majority of this body are all in favor of $2,000 COVID relief payments to working Americans. Now, we've had some back and forth on the floor today about how we got to the level of $2,000. We all know how we got to that level. The President of the United States said that's the level he supported.
Right.
The number originates with him. This is the number that he has asked for, and the House adopted it. And a majority of senators have said already publicly that they support it. And yet we can't seem to even get a vote on.
I smell presidential candidate, aspiring presidential candidate.
Can't even seem to have debate on it. I mean, with all due respect, this doesn't seem to me to be a Republicans versus Democrats issue. This seems to be the Senate versus the United States of America. And I just don't understand it. And I'm willing to
agree with
bet,
this guy.
I'm willing to bet that the American people don't understand it either. I mean, here we are in the throes of the worst pandemic in a century that working people have borne the brunt of.
42.
And all that we're asking is that those working people be first in line for relief and that they be given meaningful relief that is only approximately commensurate with the hardships that they and their families have borne. Now, I hear a lot of talk about how we can't afford it. I do notice, however, that we seem to be able to afford all kinds of other stuff. We can afford to send lots of money to other governments. We can afford to send all kinds of tax breaks and bailouts to big corporations. We can afford to spend enormous sums of money on pork, hundreds of billions of dollars in that last bill on pork, hundreds of billions. But we can't seem to find the money for relief for working people that the president and the House and the Senate all support, and yet we can't seem to get onto the floor. Let me just share 3 stories that I've heard just this week alone, from my home state, from Missouri. Danielle from St. Louis County, she called my office. She said her utilities are about to be shut off. She's desperate for help. She said a $2,000 payment would go a long way to help keep the lights on and her house warm. I heard from a mother in Southeast Missouri, that's the boot heel of my state. She wrote that her son had lost pay because of his company cutting back hours because of COVID, and that he had himself contracted the virus, and so he'd had to be home, and he was missing work, missing shifts. His family can't make it paycheck to paycheck. His husband, her daughter-in-law, is donating plasma in order to help earn some extra grocery money. Donating plasma in order to get some money to pay for groceries to feed their family. Richard from St. Louis wrote to me that any extra help that he could get would go directly to paying his rent and his utilities. He had a job that he lost in the retail business, retail sector, and he's desperately struggling. I'll just say, Mr. President, these are not people who are ne'er-do-wells. These are working people. These are strong people. These are proud people. And all that they ask for, as I have said many times on this floor before, is a chance to get back up on their feet and to be able to provide for their families. And I can't for the life of me understand why we cannot get so much as a vote on these bills. And so for that reason, Mr. President, I do not object. In fact, I enthusiastically support the measures that Senator Sanders is trying to bring to the floor, and I'd vote for them both if we were given the opportunity.
Exactly.
Is there objection?
Mr. President,
Senator
Mr. Mitch
from
is
Texas.
in trouble.
President, reserving the right to object. I know Senator Toomey is delayed coming to the floor. On his behalf, I will object.
Objection is heard.
Write that guy down.
Morning business is closed. And under the previous order, the Senate will resume consideration of the veto message on H.R. 6395, which the clerk will report.
Veto message to accompany H.R. 6395, an act to authorize appropriations for fiscal year 2021 for military activities of the Department of Defense and so forth and further purposes.
Is it over? Now my question is, on the YouTube thing, shows it's backward. Does that mean it looked like that? The final product, I mean. It's funny. It sounds like I'm fucking restaurant back here. Yeah.
I'm very proud of the work our commission.
From Oklahoma.
Are we in a quorum call?
Oklahoma.
We are not, sir.
All right. Mr. President, these will be the last few words that Senator Reed and I will talk about before the vote. And I want to mention something that I haven't talked about as much as I probably should have. First of all, the cooperation of working with Senator Reed and his staff. And this is a long enduring thing. It's hard for people to believe, but we're actually starting on next year's bill now. We've already started. So it's going to be another long.
The Senate will be in order, please.
Since I thought I mentioned something that hasn't been talked about as much as it should have been talked about, that since we've suffered arguably the worst cyber attack in American history, this is the most significant piece of cyber legislation in American history. It contains 27 of our Cyber Solarium Commission recommendations.
Most challenging NDAA that I have witnessed.
Okay, so let's end the stream.